Good morning, Southern. It's very good to see you. Kim's on screen too. That's exciting. Very good. So for all the normal Southern folk and the ones who aren't normal, you'll see that we're in the same room, but we flip things around so everything feels like you're doing it left-handed. But that's all right. It's still exciting to be here. And Kimberly is joining us this morning. She will go backstage soon to the green room. But where are you joining us from, Kim?
I'm joining you from sunny Geelong this morning. Good to be here.
Very good. And you're not in lockdown?
Well, yes, we're more unrestricted than you.
But tell us how many cafes and restaurants are open.
Well, they're all kind of open, but most of them are not letting us sit down because that's just not worth it. But we can at least take a coffee away and sit somewhere. And I think we can gather. Can we gather with 10 people in a park?
Oh, who knows, Kim? Who knows? Those are the mysteries of life, and we'll be unpacking some of those later.
I need to find 9 friends. That's what I need. Just making progress.
We're really looking forward to hearing from you this morning on the topic of singleness, on ministering to people in our community who might be living on their own or who are unmarried, so on and so forth. It's going to be great. So thanks for joining us, and you can enjoy the rest of the service backstage.
Please.
So to start us off this morning, Kaz has put together a brilliant little series of videos that Raph has stitched together. I've split them in half, so there's a couple, and then we'll come back for a tiny little bit of application at the end. So as we've spoken about, the topic of justice and advocacy through the Baptist Union of Victoria has been, they did this whole week as a justice and advocacy week. We're doing a month because there's just so much to talk about and so many people in our community who are really passionate about a lot of the topics. So I want you to enjoy this first story, or this first portion, and this is Kaz talking about First Nations people.
Hi everyone. Today I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. They are stewards on behalf of our God, the Almighty Creator. And today we'd also like to pay our respects to elders past, present and future. So today, as part of Southern's Justice series, we're going to be talking about the issue of justice for our First Nations people, our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander brothers and sisters. And this is not an easy topic. It's really easy to find this topic quite overwhelming and not really know where to start. I mean, there's so much history that we may feel a bit disconnected from. We may not know any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, especially not so much in the area that we live in. And it can be really difficult to sort of find a way to even start thinking about this issue. So as a first step, I'd just like you to invite you to listen, be open to learn, and be ready to hear what God may be placing on your heart about this issue. And to talk about this issue, I just thought it'd be great to share this short video from Brooke Prentice, who is an Aboriginal Christian leader from the Waka Waka peoples and the CEO of Common Grace. It mentions Lent, so just ignore that part. But Brooke talks about this issue in light of the biblical story of the Good Samaritan.
I've walked a lot of roads right across these lands that we now call Australia. I've walked in high heels, in boots, in running shoes, in sandals. But the most important times have been when I've walked barefoot. I've felt the land, the heartbeat, the interconnectedness of all of creation. I know Creator sees me, loves me, and walks beside me. I know I am not invisible to the Creator. However, there are many times I've walked these roads, these lands right across Australia, and I feel invisible to society and to the church. Why can't you see us? This invisibility reminds me of the parable of the Good Samaritan. You see, Aboriginal peoples have been robbed, stripped and beaten each and every day since colonisation. Stolen land, stolen wages, stolen generations, stolen lives. We've been left battered and bruised by an Australia who doesn't know and doesn't learn its true history. An Australia who doesn't seem interested in a gap that isn't closing. We're literally dying too young and too often from injustices from the past and present. We've had too many priests, reverends, ministers, pastors, and Christians who have passed us by, who have chosen not to see us, or who have seen us and ignored our cries to take our hand in friendship, to take the hand of a friend who is hurting and who does not feel loved. You see, for over 200 years, your Aboriginal neighbour, your first and oldest neighbour, indeed your Aboriginal brother and sister, have been looking for that Good Samaritan. Not for pity, but for that individual who will see us, love us, and walk beside us just as Jesus does. That individual who will act counterculturally. That individual who will stay on our side of the road and not cross over and pass us by. And there are so many neighbours all across Australia that need love. This Lent, my prayer is that you see Aboriginal peoples, that you see all your neighbours with fresh eyes. And may those fresh eyes help you to have fresh minds that help to move your hands and feet to follow Jesus. And to follow Jesus that leads to action, to change the heart of Australia. So that you can see all peoples, all creation, all those who have been excluded and who are your neighbour and need love. This Lent, which neighbour do you need to see? Which neighbour do you need to love? Which neighbour do you need to stay on the road to walk beside, giving your hand, your time, your resources, and your heart? May Creator guide your footsteps as you walk in love with your neighbour across these lands now called Australia.
So there's so much good stuff in here. I really loved what Brooke had to say about the neighbour who will stay on our side of the road and not cross over and pass us by. And so this to me really is about following Jesus, who stayed on the side of the road for those who may be marginalised, forgotten or oppressed.
Well, that was excellent. And Kaz, thank you so much for putting it together. Kaz will have a small section in a few minutes, and that will be around application for all that. Application, always very important. Interesting what she said there about sometimes we can feel disconnected, particularly having spent a lot of time in Perth in the past. Aboriginal people were all around where we lived, and we would interact in community. Here it feels so disconnected. And so when I saw Brooke walk through those streets, I thought, yeah, but I don't come across Aboriginal people that often. And I did feel that sense of disconnect until my sister sent me a copy of Derby's Down Under. So my mum's maiden name was Derby, Val Derby. And it's either great-great-great or great-great-great-great, I haven't worked it out, grandfather landed from Ireland back in 1840. And this brought it home very much to me that as he landed and settled, he and his wife chose a piece of land near the Mary Creek, which is now called Northcote. They squatted on about an acre, and after 12 months, that land was called theirs. There was no option that any First Nations people, that any current residents of that area would be even considered in what that looked like. They then bought another 50 acres and then another 100 acres for £1 an acre. So it was called the Royal Derby Estate, and it was acres and acres and acres all around Northcote, Fitzroy, which I think might be why the Royal Derby Hotel is there in Fitzroy near the Veggie Bar. But it just really brought it home to me that there was just no consultation, no discussion about anyone else owning that land. And in this Derby's Down Under recollection, it says this, is a quote from the book: "A group of Aborigines," we don't call them that anymore, but that's what it says, took up residence on his land close to Merry Creek. Jared and Sarah, that's my ancestors, visited them, making friendly gestures and showing them clothes, shoes and jewellery. And Jared observed the men spearing fish and catching yabbies in Merry Creek. It blows my mind. I'm a part of this. And so as we spend just a minute or so praying now before we move on, I would like to acknowledge that my family is a part of that. It's a part of taking over land that was not ours. We need to acknowledge, we need to say we're sorry. But I also want to acknowledge that there are a number of people, lots and lots of pastors and priests and all sorts of leaders in our community who've actually done a fantastic job of connecting with First Nations people right back hundreds of years ago, doing it with the power of the Holy Spirit, doing it with gentleness and respect. And we do tend to forget about those people. So we need to hold those two things in tension. We need to acknowledge where we've made awful mistakes, and we need to acknowledge that God has used people really effectively as well. So let's spend a couple of minutes in prayer, and then we're going to move on with a song. Father God, we come before you this morning, acknowledging that this land is yours, acknowledging that the land we are currently living on is yours. But after it's yours, it belongs to the people who were here before us. And so, God, for all the injustices that we have been in any way connected to, we say that we're sorry. We repent of that. We ask that you would bring us to a place where we understand our neighbours, our First Nations neighbours better, and where we can be used by you to bring reconciliation, hope, and just a new normal, a new way of operating. And God, we know that's a miracle we're asking for, but we give these things to you. We give our southern members to you, those who are doing great right now and those who are doing it really tough. We bring all of us before you, and we ask that you would minister to us, that you would speak to us. And Lord, we offer ourselves to you in Jesus' name. Amen. We are going to go to a song, and this is a song from Jenny and Beck, recorded last year, and Steph, I think, is in.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. see you.
So, 3 things that you can do to take action on this issue. Number 1, start just to have a pause and listening. And a great place to start is with Common Grace. If you haven't heard of this organisation already, it's a group of Christians who, many of them are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander background, sharing from the heart about how our faith and our theology links to this specific issue of injustice and what the church can do about it. Number 2 is to donate. So you can donate to Aboriginal ministries or Aboriginal-led community development projects. And number 3 is to take action on a particular issue. So at the moment, Common Grace are running a prayer vigil and petition on Aboriginal deaths in custody and the disproportionate rates that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are dying in custody in our jails. That's happening in the next week. And also to pray about this issue. So I'd just like to finish with a short prayer written by the Aboriginal and Islander Commission National Council of Churches. Almighty and loving God, who created all people in your image, lead us to seek your compassion as we listen to the stories of our past. You gave your only Son, Jesus, who died and rose again, so that sins will be forgiven. We place before you the pain and anguish of dispossession of land, language, law, culture and family kinship that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have experienced. We live in faith that all people will rise from the depths of despair and hopelessness. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families have endured the pain and loss of loved ones through the separation of children from their families. We are sorry and ask God's forgiveness. Touch the hearts of the broken, homeless and inflicted and heal their spirits. In your mercy and compassion, walk with us as we continue our journey in healing to create a future that is just and equitable. Lord, you are our hope. Amen. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, ready.
Thank you so much, Kaz. Really appreciate all that work you put in. Now, you may or may not recognise this person next to me. Alyssa has gone blonde in lockdown. There's no other way to say it. She's still a cutie, and she is. Okay, that was cringeworthy. Enjoy the kids' church story from Liz.
Hello. Hi, kids and adults. I'm just going to be doing a little segment today for Kids Church. So we've talked about an acknowledgement of country. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, if you've talked about it at school or not. Maybe you want to comment below or get your mum to comment below about what you think an acknowledgement of country is. So pretty much it is just a way that we can respect the traditional custodians of the land. It is about just acknowledging who owned the land originally and who it belongs to. And since we have been talking about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, today we're going to do a little acknowledgement of country, but we're going to do it in a different way. So we're going to do it with our feet. So I think Mum posted the other day about bringing a pen and paper. So if you want to grab that and get that ready, what you're going to do is put your foot onto or both your feet, one or two, onto the paper, trace around them, and then just like I've done here. And then what I'm going to get you to do is find out what land you're living on. So for example, I am standing and living on the land of the Wurundjeri people. I'm sure a lot of people will be the same land as me, and some might be different. So it'll be interesting to see the mix of people that we have. If you want to take a photo or color it in or show someone, we can gather those together, maybe pop them on Facebook, and we can all see. And what I will finish with is a prayer from Brooke Prentice. So she's the CEO of Common Grace. Okay. Dear God, may our footsteps on these ancient lands remind us of creation and connectedness in our search for truth. May the gum tree, from its roots to its branches, remind us to dig deep and reach high in our action for justice. May the eagle who soars in the sky remind us of the power in our call for love. May the expanse of the lands and seas, of the sky and stars, remind us of God's timing in our faith and hope. May the holy tree, Creator Spirit, Lord God, Papa Jesus, remind us of community. So with grace, mercy, and peace, go in truth, justice, love, and hope. Amen.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. I really appreciate it. And Kaz helped put that together, of course. And I think we're going to bring Kimberly on, who just commented in the chat, our own little private chat. Alyssa is a cutie. Yeah, it's all right to say it, isn't it?
I don't know. But you said it now, so I'm just rolling with that.
I'll put it out there. So,
Yeah.
Kim, before I leave the screen to you, 2 questions for you. First of all, tell us what your current role is and what some of your previous experience has been in ministry.
Excellent. Well, I currently work with the Baptist Union of Victoria as the Generations and Emerging Leaders Pastor. So that allows me the privilege to work with pastors and leaders who are engaged in our generations ministries, kids, youth, families, young adults across our whole Baptist family, which is over 250 churches in the state, and also to encourage a focus on developing leaders and work with Bill Brown, and together we run some, or he runs them and I just show up to them, some great programs about how to develop leaders and trying to equip churches to do that within their own context. So that, I love my job. Unfortunately, I've done a lot of it sitting here in the last little while, but normally it sees me out and about visiting churches and engaging in, whole myriad of ways, which I love. And I can't remember. So before that, I was at Werribee Baptist Church. I was an associate pastor there for nearly 15 years. And before that, I was a school teacher. So, and before that, I mean, you wouldn't even know, because I'm only about 27 now. So I fitted a lot in, which is just crazy. But yeah, that's where I've come from.
I didn't realise till I saw one of your posts on social media last night about 9/11, and you said something about a class, and I'm like, what? You're a teacher. There you go. Southern is full of teachers, so just saying.
Okay.
My second question before I leave you is, what is your current family unit?
Living arrangement. So I have been living by myself for quite some time, until about this time last year. I had a little person join me. So now I have a 13-year-old who lives here. She became a 13-year-old when while she was living with me. So we're very advanced. In a year, I created a teenager. So I feel like she'll be graduating uni sometime next year, and it's going to be a big, quick process. But yes, so I have a young person staying with me, which has been a great experience over the last 12 months.
Yeah, and no doubt a challenging one, and it's parenting on steroids and all of those things. So, yeah. So
whatever words you could think to put to it, I'm sure it's all of them.
Yeah. All right. And without further ado, I will leave it to you. Thank you. And we'll come back for questions at the end.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, it is a great privilege to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to do that. As we've heard, our topic this morning is actually on singleness, and I get very excited about any church who opens that topic up, because it's actually not a very commonly spoken about one in terms of from the platform or from leadership in churches. And that was my experience. So I was previously married, and we read about how God hates divorce, and so do I. And it was a terrible experience to find myself after 8 years facing that. But I think what God desires for me as his daughter was not what I was experiencing in that relationship. And so that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. But I found myself single again, is the language I would put to it. And so at the same time, I'm drawn into church leadership, and church by its nature is a really family-oriented organization, and gathering of people, and, as the family of God, and then as people who are rightly the champions of marriage and healthy parenting and good family dynamics. So I found myself navigating that as a single adult, and it was quite different. And so as a church, we were approaching some of those things quite differently, though, because I was in senior leadership. And the more we experienced and explored that, the more we realized that other churches and other gatherings of people were probably not exploring that topic. So that was what prompted me to write a book about that. And this is the bit where I hold up my book. I didn't bring a book. Anyway, there's a book on that you can look into. But the challenge, I guess the question that I was asking is, what does it look like for a church family to really and truly function as a family? John 1:12 talks about that anyone who is, a Christian is bought, anyone who believes in Jesus is given the right to be a son or a daughter of God. And in 1 John 3, it talks about, how great is the love the Father has lavished upon us that we would be daughters and sons of God. And that's what we are. So obviously, if we're sons and daughters of God, that means we're family to each other. And I think it's not just a story about what we're meant to be like, it's who we are. So what does it look like then for a single adult person to navigate this family dynamic alone or on their own in how they show up to that? And so I think this morning, I just want to unpack maybe some reflections on that, and under the bigger heading of how can the church family be family to those without family. So that's what we're going to sort of look at as we go. And I'm just going to fire off some thoughts. I've obviously been thinking about this for a long time. I've got a lot of ideas and a lot of stories, but I want to just put that information out there. And then as you've been seeing down the side, there's opportunity for you to jump on to ask me a question or to write that in the chat on whatever platform you're watching this, because I would really love to just interact with this, where it sits for you guys. Like I could talk forever, but I would like to talk about something that's useful to you. So how can the church family be family to those without family? And the first heading or the first concept I want to think about is belonging. Now, if you are part of a biological family, there's an innate sense of felt belonging that is part of that. Even the fact that you share a last name, that you're able to say we instead of I when you're talking about things, that's belonging, that's connection. And the best way I can express what this feels like as a single adult, not having that sense of belonging, is to describe this experience of showing up to places alone. And every time I talk about this, it gets deep resonance with single adults, but showing up alone. Now, it might surprise many of you to know that I'm an extrovert. So that is a sense of where I get my energy from. Introvert versus extrovert, I'm an extrovert. Introverts are battery powered. Extroverts are solar powered. That's my best description. So I get all of my energy externally from people, being with people and the energy that comes from that. And if I had like the little sort of battery power thing, that says how much battery you've got left in you, like when I'm with people, that'd be at 100%. As I walk away, you would watch it go down and I turn into one of those floppy dolls. The ones you squish like, but I'll be one of them by the end of it, because I get my energy from being with other people. But such is the challenge of arriving somewhere alone. I have been known to say no to an invitation or to not turn up to an event because I don't want to have to arrive by myself. This awkward thing of walking into a room where conversations are already taking place, where seats have already been assigned and you don't know where you're going to fit in. You wonder, what you've missed or who's going to look to you or who's going to include you. If you arrive with someone else, at least, even if you're not talking to them, you just stand next to them and you don't look so lonely, right? But if you arrive alone, it can be very awkward. And that hurdle of getting over that is a really hard thing to do. As I said, as a raging extrovert, very socially confident and competent, I have been known to avoid it. So you can imagine what that is like for others. And so just some simple practical things, like what about an SMS that says, hey, do you want to go to this thing together? Do you want to come with us? Do you want to meet outside and we'll walk in together? Or, hey, we're inside, we've already saved you a seat, or we're in the back right corner, or come find us, just to help people get over that initial kind of connecting into a new space. So the first thing, security. Second one is practical support. There's a reality to the fact that there's a lot of functions that happen in a household that just need to happen whether you've got one person in the house or you've got 10. There's the garbage still goes out, the bills still have to be paid, the grass still grows at the same rate, right? Everything still happens in the home of the person living by themselves that happens in a family home. It just has only one person to do that. So just some reality of offering and connecting. How does a church family be family to those without family? It could be as simple as a practical task. I used to have this really large clock on my wall that I just physically could not get off by myself. It's just a 2-person job. It's not like high skill. It just requires 2 people. And so every time it was daylight savings, it would be like weeks of me having to go take an hour, because I'd had to wait until someone could come and help me take the clock off the wall. So just simple, practical things that are challenging for people living by themselves. A third topic to consider is this idea of security. There's a people group in northern China called the Uyghur people. And widows who are mourning the loss of their spouse repeat this sort of mantra as part of their grieving process, which if you translate it directly into English is, I have lost the back of my chair. Now, if you're wherever you're sitting right now, if you're sitting back on your chair, to lean forward and think, what have you lost if the back of your chair is no longer there? Well, security, rest, support, comfort, all the things that the back of your chair offers you. And this is the reflection of what it's like for particularly for single again people who've been divorced or who find themselves on their own because of the death of a spouse, and they've lost the back of their chair. The writer Annabelle Crabb, she talks about learned helplessness in marriage. And it's this idea that if you're married to somebody, within your household, you all develop competencies in certain things. One of you is great at making the roast. One of you is good at fixing tech things and programming the TV. One keeps track of the finances. One's good at doing the grocery shopping. Everybody sort of takes their role. But what Annabelle Crabb notes is that as someone else is doing that job, you stop doing it and you get worse at it. Like you atrophy. And so when there's a separation that happens for whatever reason and a person finds themselves single again, there's this whole other half of a life that they now are having to compensate for. How does a church family be family to those without family? Maybe it's considering how we be the back of a chair to somebody. And if you think about it, one of the important things about being the back of a chair is that you are consistent, so that you are reliable. Imagine if you had a chair that just every now and again didn't have a back on it. You would never sit back confidently because you'd be like, I don't know if it's going to be there or not. So I think it's a beautiful picture of what it looks like to truly support people and be there for them, to be the back of their chair. I'm racing through these, but I really want to engage in your questions, so we'll keep going. The next idea is this idea of intergenerational or intergender relationships. If you live by yourself, whoever you are, that is all you are in your household. Like, I am female and I am this age, non-disclosed, and that's all that exists in my house if I'm living by myself. And so how does the church family be family to those without family? We offer this diversity of gender and age and interest and style and all the things that actually naturally takes place in a family. If you live with other people, you know that to be true, where you've got people with different perspectives and interests and skills and gifts. Well, the church family gets to be that family to somebody who can't do it. And the title of my book is What We Cannot Be Alone, and that I cannot be family by myself. I just can't do it. I'm a strong, independent, capable person, but I cannot be family to myself. So that's the gift that we give each other. For a little while, I lived with my best friend. We shared a house together for 5 years, and we used to say all the time that people would invite us out, girls would say, let's girls night out, let's go, get the girls together, let's get out of here. And I'm like, girls night is every night at our house. Like, that's all we were, was girls. So we were less interested in a girls night out and more interested in, can we come and be somewhere where your kids are going to be or where your husbands or partners will be, so that we have some male contact. So how does the church family be family to those without family? Is we just provide our family and the diversity that exists. And I think anyone who has a family, that that's a win for everybody. You bring an extra adult into your environment, there's some good things that take place in terms of your kids being connected with, someone else for other people to engage with. I think there's a win there for us all if we're truly reflecting that family. Another point is the idea of refining relationships. For single people, one of the weaknesses or the challenges that we have to overcome is that we do not have to stay in relationships that are difficult. You know, if you say something mean to me, I just don't need to talk to you again. Or if you kind of challenge me on something, I can just avoid you. But in marriage and in family, that sort of tension sometimes sits in a way that's very helpful for us. Hey, you've got to sort that attitude out. Like this is not, you know, acceptable. You've got to work on that, because I think you're your own worst enemy, or you're making it very difficult for other people to work with you. And I'm not talking about, you know, control and abuse and, of course, all of those things. I'm talking about healthy relationship where you would say, you know, can we work on this? I love you too much to let you be that annoying, or to let you you know, do that to yourself, let alone to other people. Now, for single people, that's a challenge for us, because we can walk away. And so there's an intentionality required on our behalf, as well as on the community around us, to say, hey, we'll be those people that journey with you through the hard things and keep you accountable and stay with you to make you the best version of you, and to encourage you to get the most out of and flourish, you know, in life. And just a final thought, I think, is the idea of oh no, maybe two more. Intimacy is one more. Is the idea of intimacy, because we're all wired for it. We're sexual and physical and emotionally wired human beings that look for that level of connection. And it's just a point of noticing that for us as single people. That how does the church family be family to those without family? Well, it may be helping to provide healthy, appropriate, safe ways to engage that sense of intimacy. And by that I mean, like, I'm a physical touch person, so I you know, my dad is big and nice and gives the best hugs, and like I need that in my life. But without, if you're living by yourself, you don't actually touch humans. Like there's not even a sense of kinesthetic awareness. Like I exist in the world. You know, if you live with people, you're bumping into each other to move over. I need to get a spoon out of the drawer or whatever. If you're living by yourself, you may literally not touch other human beings, and it isn't good for you, because it doesn't sort of locate you in space. So thinking that through, and for single people, if we're not managing this sense of intimacy and our need for it, it will manage us. It will show up in very unhealthy ways, in addictions and investments into unhealthy relationships, or substances, or processes that try to distract us from what our real need is. This is my final point, and that is the one of providing relaxed social spaces. This is the one that gets, I think, families really excited. How can the church family be family to those without family? What you might be able to provide is a really messy, normal household for a single person who doesn't experience that. You know, grab your own dinner, wear your slippers, sit on the couch and yell at MasterChef or whatever it is kind of environment. Because if you think about it, for every time a single person wants to connect with other humans, it's like an organized thing. They have to schedule it. They may even have to, you know, dress up, put on shoes, you know, go out for it. Sometimes single people just need the normalcy of, you know, she's off to tennis practice and someone's, you know, doing drum rehearsal in their room, and there's noise and there's laundry piled on the table, but it's just normal family life. And as I say, people get really excited about this, because I think a lot of you have a lot of that normal thing to offer other people. Now, Rafi, if you can bring up that slide, this is what we've raced ourselves through today, just a few points of what it looks like to be family to those who don't have family. And you can see belonging, practical support, security, the intergender or intergenerational relationships, refining relationships, intimacy, and those relaxed social spaces. And I think, Sal, you're going to jump on and sort of facilitate this for us, but some questions that you might want to ask as we reflect more on that.
Brilliant. Kim, that was amazing. I feel like we could do a whole day seminar and we'd still only get about an inch down into the ground. So many good points there. And as Darren commented, and he'll be hopping online soon, he said the back of the chair thing is the bad word. Brilliant, because it's that idea that we could support someone, but we can't do it just here and there. It's got to be something more solid than that.
And in fact, if it's not reliable, it's almost worse.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so I think it's good to actually think about that in terms of, this is what I can offer you. I'm not committing to mow your lawn every week, I'm just mowing it this week. Like, that, and being clear about the communication of that, because it's important for the person to know, like, am I leaning back here, or is this just a little help out situation? And it's okay. Both of them are necessary, but it's just that communication to understand that and to recognize what it is that you're offering and where it sits for the person who's receiving it.
Yeah. In a second, I'm going to pull Lisa on screen. She's going to ask a question. But just before that, I want to read this comment from Stephen Lording, who is part of a networked family. But he said, no question as such, but really feeling the absence of my church family and the value of meeting together. Don't think I'll take that for granted again.
Yeah.
And I think that gives us a bit of a greater sense of understanding of what singleness might look like. We can't get it, but it comes a step closer to getting it.
Yeah, it really sort of raises that empathetic piece, doesn't it? In terms of, like, I get what it means to not have the same level of connection that you really need or want. And even in this lockdown situation, one of the phrases that drove me nuts last year, because when we first went into lockdown was before I had the child move in with me. So I was living by myself, and people kept saying, oh, it's so good to have family time. This has really forced us to have family time. Like, no, this has locked me away from my family. I'm not getting family time. And it was just a little thing of, like, a lack of empathy, I guess. Most people have that sort of sense of, for us, this is what it's looked like, but just that blanket statement, isn't everybody just loving this because you get more time with your family? Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm getting less time with my family, and I'm not seeing, I would go like 3-4 days without actually interacting with a live human being, back in the day. Like, it was crazy. Yeah. So it's just that, I love that comment, because it's a raising of empathy. I love it.
Yep, absolutely. Now, Raf will pull Lisa on screen, and for anyone who would like to jump on screen and ask a question, Raf's put that. If you're watching on Facebook, he has popped that link up a few times, so please feel free to just jump on that. Make sure you're doing it on a laptop. Make sure you're doing it with Chrome. So please feel free to go ahead with that. Morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Sally. Good morning, Kimberly.
Hey.
Nice to have you here. Always looking lovely in pink.
Yeah,
it's
so lovely today. So lovely this morning. So lovely.
What's your question?
Oh, well, I've got lots of questions, but firstly, I just want to say thank you. And amazing what you've learned in your 27 years. It's incredible. Just so much wisdom there. You packed it in. Yeah. And I just want to, thank you for articulating needs of single people. I think you did that really well. And also, going to the intimacy thing, I think that's part of people. The fear of single people is around intimacy, and as you said, with the diversity, females then needing male contact, but oh my gosh, are you a threat if we bring you in here? So that awkwardness is just so important to understand. But I actually just want to flip it on its head and just go, what do you think that single people, what do you think the church needs from single people? What do you think we can, and I'm a single person, and need some people, because I'm moving house at the moment. So see all these boxes? Come. Oh no, you can't. I'll lift them myself. I have many clocks. But what do you think the church needs that single people can offer?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I think I wrote one time, like, I think every family should get a single person. Like, everyone should have one, because they're so handy. Like, I remember, I think it's in the book, there was a time where friends that are in a family, they were preparing for their brother to pass away, and it was imminent. And they booked me in to be the person who would come if they needed me to in the middle of the night or whenever it was, to be with their kids if they would have to, duck out quickly, which had ended up happening. And so for about a week, I went to bed with a little bag packed at the end of my bed, ready to go if I got the call. And the thing is, I was the best person for that job. Like, I didn't have, because if you ask a married with kids friend, they've got to then get someone else to look after their kids, or so my availability made me perfect for that role. And I think sometimes singles get a little bit funny about that. Like, you're just asking me because you think I have no life and, you know, like I have no responsibilities. But there's some times and places where we're best situated to help. And I mean, I know that for me, with all of my friends who've had young kids, like, who doesn't need an extra pair of arms and, you know, in the room, like, you know, bedtime, bath time, feeding time, all the time. So I think that there's a call on single people to recognise there is a freedom of time and responsibility and space and all those things that does exist. It just is. Like, it's not to say that we're irresponsible or, you know, immature or we don't have commitments or something like that, but there is a reality that we're a bit more of the master of our own destiny in terms of our capacity to move quickly and to respond. And so I'm grateful. Like, I look back on my ministry life and I just say, I know it would not have been the same if I was married. Not that it would be worse or better or either, but it just would not have been the same. And my determination has been, I don't want to look back if I do get married, which, you know, could be part of my future again. I don't want to look back and go, oh man, I had all that time, you know, and I spent it like defending myself rather than investing it wisely. So I think, and I think your piece about the working through or breaking through any of the stigmas attached to single people. Like, single people are no more a threat to your marriage than a married person. You know, like, we're not hyper-sexualized, unboundaried people who are a threat to you, like, any more than any other person may or may not be, you know. So I think, you know, breaking down any of those sorts of stigmas, but I think it's also a really big call on single people to actually put their hand up and say, you know what, I have a bit more time for this, or I have a bit more brain space or capacity for this. So even if that means I carry more load than other people, I'll do that because in this season I can. You know, I think that's a really big part of it too. Great questions, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. I am I allowed to respond?
Of course you are.
I didn't know. No. I just want, well, yeah, thanks. And I like that. And what you said, like flipping that, because again, flipping the thinking on it, because you are single, you do have more time. So then, you know, it's like, well, I do have that, but I don't. As a single person, you can feel like you need to defend that and justify, well, this is actually how I'm spending my hours, rather than going, you're right, I do have time. That is, yeah, I'm still committed to things, but I actually do have time. So that is a gift, and how I can actually take that and use that, or be available to jump in last minute, like you say, is really, really great. Thanks.
Yeah.
I have more questions too, you know, if you want to spin back.
Come back on later.
Ask another one. Darren is going to get on, but that's been a bit tricky, and I've got a couple of other questions. So,
you go to one.
No, you go.
You go.
Do it. She said yes. Go quick.
No, you go.
Okay.
Sorry, just give me.
I'll add a comment, and this is from Michelle, who wrote, and it's a comment, not a question. Raf, can you bring it back down on this side, because I can't see it on my phone? Sure. Michelle said, Kimberly, thank you. As a proud woman, this has helped me feel okay and not weak about maybe asking others for. Sorry. He keeps moving the screen. Sorry. I haven't had a drink this morning, I promise. As a proud woman, this has helped me feel okay and not weak about maybe.
It keeps moving because
it's not Raf's fault. About maybe asking others for help with things like gardening. Beware, Southern, she put in brackets.
You are unnoticed.
I think it's a really good point, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're needy. And I think that might be something that, you know, I'm asking both of you now, is that sometimes you feel a little bit patronized by people who say, because of your circumstances?
Yeah. The reality is you are needy. So, I mean, we all are. Like everyone is. And even people in married relationships, you could be married to someone who sucks at gardening. Like that just is how it is. So it may not necessarily be, you know, like it's not just a singleness thing. Like we all need people, you know, but there's a reality to, if there's just one of you, that the chances are there's some gaps in what will happen. But I've had to really wrestle with the fact that that singleness is vulnerability. Like you have to just embrace how vulnerable you are. You just have to recognize that you're needy. You have to ask knowing people could say no. I've had people in their helpfulness, they do condescend, like, oh, I'm here, I'm so glad I could help you because you need me. Thank you for reminding me of that, but in the end, you just have to do it because I do need you. Like even now with having a daughter to kind of care for, like, in these kind of moments, I just need someone else to help me. That is my life. It is what it is. And sometimes you're like, oh, I just get sick of having to ask. And even I get sick of the feeling like we're imbalanced here in terms of I need you way more than you need me. But that it kind of is what it is. And there's sort of a need for single people to just sort of go, it is what it is, and sort of suck it up and get on with it. But I think if people around that, like, so even who was it the comment just came from about the gardening? Michelle, like even for the rest of the community here, hang on, Michelle's got a need here. Is there like we could offer ourselves into this space? That would be one less thing she has to ask. It's one less time she has to, suck it up and come to the thing with here I am again with another, like to start being a little bit more proactive in thinking you might need this from us, or we could help you with this. I'm, out doing this. Can I do it for you as well? Just thinking, like bringing that up in a way, like, because anytime you can just take one question away from a single person having to ask for something is a gift. What do you reckon, Lisa?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just articulate, well, you said we all have needs. And I think that is, again, we try to defend or think that we're less than, or we have to be our own whole person all by ourselves, which is impossible. And so we all do need each other. So it's just that reticence to ask for, whoever we are. Actually, I need, any of us, that independent, stubborn, self-sufficient streak that we have. And I think you're right, single people develop that a lot more because they have to. They have to do everything by themselves. And so then I know for myself, I get poor at asking. Because I could ask, but I can actually do that myself. And if I don't, I'll work out how to do it rather than to ask.
It's the back of the chair thing. There's been times when you have asked and it hasn't happened, or because one of the things I've said to people in my community and I try to educate everybody on. So just a simple thing, like if you invite me over for dinner, that's a big deal in my life. Like that's a big deal on my calendar. That means I have people today, but if then for some reason you have to cancel that, like one of you gets sick or tired or late or whatever, you guys end up having a family dinner and I end up by myself. Like that cost me a whole lot more than it cost you. And so that for me, I find myself really tentative about going into those spaces saying, please don't pull this rug out from under me. Like I need this a heck of a lot more than you do. And I feel like you might not honor that because of how much you don't need it, like it's sort of, or even just that, we didn't get time to cook, so let's do it next week, and it's like that's okay. Like I'll bring the pizza. Like I wasn't coming for the food. Like I can cook. But it's just that recognition of what it means for a single person. I think the cost can be a lot higher.
That's really good. Lisa, are you happy to pop backstage because you might have something backstage? It sounds so official, doesn't it?
There's some great food in that green room. You'll love it.
Yeah. The cheese and Vicky's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So we've got
water's a little cold, but other than that, it was great.
We've got Darren ready to come on, and then Alyssa is going to ask a question after Darren does on behalf of some of the younger people. So thanks so much for that, Lisa, and welcome to Darren. Oh, with your Aboriginal part behind you. Good job.
Hey, I was sitting there and listening to you and Lisa and Sal speaking and just nodding. I'm a single male, and I get it. I'm actually quite competent as a social. I'm the solar powered person, so I get my energy from other people. But showing up alone, the anxiety that creates is massive for me. Like I just think, oh my word, who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to speak to? I get that, and what you said, a lot of it resonated with me. But in your work, my question is, and as being a single male, work around men, is it harder for men than women, or is it about the same as a single guy in a church or a single woman in a church? Have you done research around that?
Yeah, anecdotal research. I would say it is challenging for men. One reason is there's not as many.
Yeah.
And which is the lament of all the single women in the churches, but there just doesn't seem to be as many, and so I think there's that's a challenge. I think there's probably more ministry spaces where women naturally fit into regardless of being single, and so I think that is there's more likely to be a women's group at a church than a men's group or something like. So I think those kind of I think men who find a place of connection just for being them, obviously, like whether it's on the worship team or there is a men's group or they're invited into a multi sort of gender age, small group or life group, find it different. But I've heard that from men, and I would say it is a bit harder. I think there's a bit more skepticism around single older men, just to be putting that out there. And I think because of the imbalance of numbers, it's just like, so what happened? Like, what, and I think there is this. It's wrong, and it's but I'm just naming that as I think a bit of a bias that sometimes we have. And so I would say, unfortunately for you, Darren, I think it is a little bit more challenging. But I think that the key is finding, you don't have to change a whole church. You just have to find your people. Because, that's true of everybody. When people say, "Oh, I feel like I really belong at this church," they don't belong to the entire 100, 5,000, 30 people. They belong to 3 or 4, and who make them feel like they belong. And in fact, the research does tell us that one of the key factors for belonging is being known by name by people outside of your demographic. Right. So for us, it's been known by younger people, or it's been known by senior people. It's been known by males and female, like that kind of thing. So it only takes a small representation of a broader group for you to feel like you belong to the broader group. So I think that's an encouragement, for yourself and for other men, in that category. As I say, I think it is a little bit more challenging. But I think, I found as an older single woman, I just got lumped into the younger single women. Yeah. So most of my friends at church are 10 years younger than me, in my previous sort of environments, because that's who the unmarrieds were. Yeah. But then my peers are all parents and married, like my age peers. And so, but for me, it was about connecting into a small group that was a representation of a bit of a broader, it wasn't a single women's group,
And that I would resonate with that, because when I was my previous church, there was a group called Mingles, Married and Singles, and it was an awesome group, just an opportunity to be me in a group. There was blokes there was females there. It was a chance to connect with a group and just be, a normal 30-year-old in a group where, most people are married. But that group, through that group and through that small group, there are still blokes that I still chat to now that, we're demographically quite different locations, but it really was important for that to happen. I guess also, I found that the best way to be a single bloke is you said providing relaxed social spaces, and that's awesome. Like, there are a number of families in the church that just do that just welcome me into their home. I'm a part of their, I'm invited to meals. I can sit on the couch. I can put my feet up. They're the spaces that I guess really provide for me as a single male. Yeah,
that's good. That's encouraging to hear you're experiencing that.
Yeah, that's good, Daz. And unfortunately, now is not the time that's happening, but we need to tuck this away and remember that that's what we need to be doing, for not just for you, Daz, but for us. It's important. It's important all around. Yeah. Thank you so much, Darren. I'll keep moving because we are running out of time quite rapidly. Alyssa has a question or comment on behalf of the younger people.
Hey. I was just thinking about how a lot of the people my age are sort of reconsidering the idea of marriage as like an end goal sort of a thing. And I've seen in some sociology reports and stuff how, we all know divorce rates are up, and people are kind of realizing that you can't get all your needs from one person. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. Good observations and questions. I think I love your rethinking the idea of marriage as the end goal. I think we've done a great disservice to ourselves and emerging generations to actually set that up that way. You know, we do talk about marriage as a bit of a milestone, like it's a prize for being a good person. And, you know, sort of, I mean, because even people say to me, oh my goodness, like, how are you not married? As if like, you're almost good enough to be married. Like that's, you know, like it's sort of this, and I get it. Like, I'm not saying that's what people, but it's this innate thing we're thinking like, but you're a good person. Shouldn't you be married? Like, isn't that what good people do? Is they be married? You know, it's like this prize that we have for things. I tell the story of a guy I met one time, and he was telling me about his family. He's like, I've got 3 adult kids, 2 are married, 1 to go. And I just thought, wow, like, what are you saying about, like, this is the leading, this is what you want me to know about your kids. And it is, because there's a sense of pride or, you know, success or accomplishment, because look at them, they're moving through life, they're ticking off all the stage goals and all that kind of stuff. So I love the idea, though, of the individual. I mean, I think as a community and as a society, we've got to rethink our idea of marriage being the end goal, because I think what we do is we push towards that in unhealthy and unhelpful ways. So that third child's thinking, well, I better get married soon, better not, because dad's telling everybody that that's who we are and I'm the odd one out, you know, like, and that's not the right motivation to get married, you know, is to make sure you're not the, you know, the odd one in the family. But I think, so I think there's a broader conversation, but I like it for our young people, because I think not in the way that says I don't want marriage, but I don't need marriage as a sense of knowing that I'm adulting okay, you know, that, and I think it's to be encouraged. And I think if we've got this sense that who we are as people, flourishing as humans, being like active and contributing members of society in positive ways, dealing with our stuff, you know, being emotionally intelligent, like if that's the goal, we will make better marriages. Because if that person shows up to a marriage, it's going to be much healthier. It's going to beat the odds on the rising divorce statistics, and because it's, you know, a healthy person in a marriage is going to increase the chance that that marriage will be healthy. And so I think again, we community do a disservice. Often we're sort of talking to young people about, like, you need to be a good person so that you can get married, you know, like, you know, you need to get yourself ready to be married, but just be a good person. Like, just, you know, just grow yourself, you know, that I think is super important. And I don't think we need to be fearful of the statistics. I think I think the statistics that have changed in, you know, recent decades or whatever are more reflective on the health of relationships than they are on our value of marriage or our or how badly marriages are going. Like, where I think a lot of people stayed in marriages unhealthily rather than divorced. Now people are seeing a way out. And I don't, like, as I said at the outset, God hates divorce, I hate divorce. It tears apart something that's been brought together. There's nothing good that comes, doesn't matter how bad a marriage is, divorce is never good. So I would never advocate for it. But I think the statistics are reflecting just unhealthy marriages. Like, we're just bad at being married and at being selfless and at being sacrificing and at being, you know, gentle and kind and good to each other. You know, I think there's an increased statistic of people leaving abusive marriages that I am 100% for. Like, you don't need to stay in a marriage where you're being abused or coerced or there's violence being perpetrated against you. But you know, so I think there's some shifts in how we're measuring marriage success. I don't know, I could have really walked myself into some trouble there, but yeah, I don't know if I was speaking off the top of my head, but yes, I think just to finish on the point that I would encourage and repeat is that marriage is not the end goal. So it's not something to be feared or avoided just for its own sake, but it's not the measurement of success, and it's not what we should be looking at as the thing we're working towards. It's the thing that happens while we're working towards being the best, and what might happen, you know, as we working towards being God's best.
That's so good, Kimberly. Yeah. If you're okay, Lisa and Darren, I'm just going to bring you back on. I'm not. The magic behind me is going to do it.
I like how you say that, like you're doing anything.
Yeah, like I'm just like, you know, the tech.
Hang on, let me just wiggle my nose. Oh, they were right.
Yeah, I did, and Raph did it. Any final thoughts or comments or questions from anybody before we wrap it up? And I'll start. Kimberly, can you give us one simple idea Now I'm talking about outreach. Now I'm talking about the Eltham and beyond community. When we finally start to emerge again out of this lockdown, what would be one simple thing you could suggest to be particularly helping, and I don't mean helping in a patronising way, helping the people who are single and possibly living alone? What's something the church can do?
I think that's a great question. I think it's ask a question. Don't think you can work it out yourself, because you ask Lisa, you ask Darren, you ask me, it'll be different. Like, let alone who else is in our community, whatever, and, you know, kids, work. Like, there's just so many variances that, you know, impact what a person needs, you know. So it's asking a question, and I think it's good to sort of practice a question. If you're friends with Lisa and Darren, ring them and say, hey, if I said this, would that be weird? You know, like, get them to help you. Like, we can train you in how to talk to single people. Like, we could do classes. It'd be amazing. But I think, like, I'm the boss that I worked with, and I ended up being really close with his family. His thing used to always be, look, this is a bit awkward, but I want to get this right, so I'm just going to ask it. You know, and I was like, perfect. Like, let's just embrace the awkwardness of that and talk directly to it, rather than I'm just going to give you a food hamper and assume that you can't feed yourself, rather than you actually need me to talk to you. You know, like, if we're guessing, it's not going to land in the right place. So
when Lisa was talking and the boxes are behind her and she's moving on Tuesday and we can't help because she's got to have removalists come in because of lockdown. In my head, while she was talking, I'm like, right, I'm going to get her a voucher for Tuesday night so that on Tuesday night she's got something to eat. And then now it's like, maybe I should ask if that's what she wants. Noted. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments before we wrap up?
Just say, like, sometimes it is not, like, it's nice not to have to be out. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say no to a food hamper. Hello. But like, I think it's assuming then that you have done your duties to single people by feeding them. You know, like, I think that's the problem. So if you had have just surprised Lisa with a voucher on Tuesday night, I'm sure she would not. I'm sure she wouldn't have gone, oh, Sally, like, thanks a lot, like a food voucher, like, you know. But if you then next Sunday announce to the church, hey guys, we totally cared for Lisa this week because I sent her a food voucher, so she's sorted. You don't need to worry about her. You know, like, and Lisa's like drowning in, you know, practical things and decision making and all these things, and no one's talking to her because Sally gave her a food voucher. You know, that's the nuance, I think.
A $5 off his pizza voucher.
That's right. Free delivery on anything you buy.
Don't worry about her. Lisa, Darren, any final comments or questions? It's okay if there aren't.
Oh no, I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah.
I completely agree with what you said right at the start. That, you know, I've been involved in faith communities pretty much all my life, and, you know, being probably about 26 years old, have never, you know, the number of times it's actually been spoken about, and again, so many assumptions. And again, because of that awkwardness, and we're not quite sure what to do or how to place you and what that means without anyone asking. So without there being any dialogue. So even I think just even that you were speaking on singleness, and that this is the first time we've done this as a church and opened it up for dialogue rather than here's my point. I actually think that's very poignant, and I just want to thank you for doing that, and Sally and Raf for opening it up for a conversation rather than a sermon and some, you know, some points that one size
what you should do.
Yeah, exactly. So so we don't keep going longer and longer. But yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, ditto. Resources, or if we wanted to, you know,
book plug, buy your book.
There's a great book. If you just happen to go to kimberlysmith.org, you might find some other resources. Make sure you spell my name right. Kimberly Smith.
Oh no.
No E. And but there, like, I've blogged a lot, and there's also a lot of like interviews and podcasts and things and messages I've done there. The unfortunate reality is there's not a lot of activity out there in this space. I did get given a book one time called Single, Sassy and Satisfied. But I wouldn't be recommending that to anybody else. But
I don't know. I think it's worth a read.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I think it's holding up my it's under a mistake or something. I was probably in the bin. But yes, there's not a heap out there. But I think like what you'll find on there are the churches that have invited me to speak on it, and so the recordings and the links and stuff are there. And so then they become churches that I think are like it's almost like they should have a little sticker outside that they're single friendly or something. You know, it's just like we acknowledge that singles exist and they're different to us, you know, kind of thing. So you get a sticker, Sally. Congratulations.
Better than vaccination stickers.
Nearly.
Thank you so much, all of you, for contributing, because it is a conversation. You're right, Lisa, and I've learned things. I am just thrilled that you were able to join us, Kim, and we want to say bless you as you continue in that ministry. It's obviously really important, and the work that you're doing with your beautiful girl, we just value and acknowledge that as well. So thanks, everyone, and we will see you on the normal live stream service, as in back on the couch, next Sunday.
Back on the couch.
Back on the couch.
Feel free to send your food vouchers. Yeah. Feel free to send them in.